There are brands like L'Oreal who have decided to operate and activate with multiple players associations.
I mean, I'm sure there are situations where you work with a certain brand with one players association, and then it's like, wait a second, what about using it? Would you be, and then moving it over to another one?
Absolutely, absolutely, and our business partners are out there. We're out there having those conversations. A lot of times that happens organically. It makes sense. Of a deal has gone so well for something that a partner has done for the U.S. Women's National Team Players Association, for example, and they would love to be able to tap in and do something similar with the national, the NWSLPA, for example. So there's a lot of that does happen. And once something is proven and there's success, it's kind of the domino effect of let's do more. Let's figure out how we can do more in this space. How can we support the players more? How can we bring more visibility? And so that absolutely does happen.
Do you have some examples of that, of different brands that you've worked with, maybe with one PA and then have moved that across?
Yeah, I would say that has happened in our trading card space for sure, where there are partners that we have used or have worked with, partnered with, who work with multiple PAs. In our thinking about our women's players associations, there are brands like L'Oreal who have decided to operate and activate with multiple players associations. Again, having seen how well that has worked, to be able to do that among a few of the women's PAs.
Got it. That's great. And from your perspective, what's the most fun thing that you do at your job at One Team?
Yeah, well, you know what? I feel very lucky to do what I do. Having spent the first 6, 7 years of my career kind of growing up and doing the whole big law, M&A, venture capital thing. Um, as a big law associate, you don't have a whole lot of autonomy over your work, your lifestyle, anything, right? And so, having come from a world in which there were deals, that I would work on and be happy to have worked on them, but at the end of the day, not necessarily feeling 100% either enthused or passionate about it. The best thing I think about what I'm doing now is I'm doing something that I'm leveraging, obviously, the skills that I've developed over the years, but being able to marry that with my passion, just and love for sports, having grown up in a sports family, played at a high level, and now, as a coach's wife, still in the sports spectrum, and then as a mom now seeing my son who loves anything with a ball. I love being able to contribute to the athlete ecosystem and see it out in the real world. So working on deals and then being able to bring home a trading card pack for my son, or things like that, and explain to him how mom was involved in this and how mom's coworkers brought this to fruition. But not only that, but how that impacts the players who he loves and idolizes. So it's meaningful to me on a personal level, and I feel really, really lucky to sit in the seat that I do, for sure.
Well, I mean, I'm sure you probably see a little bit of your own childhood, right, in what he's experiencing now, right? Being
Absolutely.
you're now a coach's wife. You were a coach's daughter, right? And in your own right, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, right? I mean, you're a Hall of Famer at Brown. I mean, as a lacrosse player, and did I get this right that your freshman year at Brown you played both lacrosse and basketball?
You did get that right. Yeah, that is a little fun fact. Yeah, so I was recruited to come to Brown to play lacrosse, but as you know, basketball runs deep in our blood. But you can't tell right now, but I'm all of 5'3", so there's a little bit of the height challenge there. And so my options, to play at a high level were limited on the basketball side, and lacrosse honestly was something that I had picked up. Someone had given me a stick and said, "Hey, it's similar to basketball. Why don't you give it a try?" and kind of took off. But I got to Brown my first semester and missed basketball. And I was fortunate enough, I don't know that this would work now with the way that college athletics is, but my college coach said, hey, you can have a conversation with the basketball coach, and if she's got a spot, try out. I'll give you that permission to do both. And I did that my first year. It was a lot. You got two back. You got a winter sport and a spring sport. So back to back is just it's a lot. And I ultimately decided after that year to focus on lacrosse. But you definitely got that right.
Well, it's really interesting. So, I had the opportunity to interview Mark Riccio, the CEO of USA Lacrosse,
Yep.
in Las Vegas, and at a conference called Peak. And he said almost exactly what you just said, and how he described the 6-on-6 lacrosse that's going to be being played in LA 28 as like basketball.
Yeah.
And it's really fascinating.
Before I took a year off between college and going to law school, and I coached. I coached both high school girls basketball and girls lacrosse, and I would always try to get our basketball players, even if they had never picked up a stick, to play lacrosse, because it's something that you can acquire the skill, but that natural instinct of being able to read opportunities either offensively, the defensive footwork, and being able to stay. There's so many similarities that translate. And they typically they loved it once they were introduced to it, but it really does feel like a stretch when people say lacrosse is like basketball, because you've got your indoor sport with outdoor and your sticks and all of that kind of stuff. But there are a lot of similarities. Well,
he said that's what people are going to really love when they see the sixes during the Olympics, and how fast it is, and back and forth, and people cutting and moving, and just all the excitement of the game.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, it wasn't an Olympic sport when I was on the U.S. team, but I'm excited that those athletes will have the opportunity to represent for our country on the biggest stage.
I mean, it's going to be amazing, both the men's and women's teams in LA 28. So when you were on the USA team, where did you play, and what were some of the your experiences?
So we obviously have the World Cup, or maybe less obvious, I should say, that happens every 4 years. And then in between that, you're competing domestically, you are competing sometimes internationally. And so when I was on it, those were non-World Cup years. So unfortunately, I didn't have the benefit of being able to compete for a World Cup, but just being able to play and represent your country at the highest level with the best of the best is just a surreal experience, one that you kind of have to pinch yourself. Particularly in my case, I didn't grow up, playing lacrosse. Some of my teammates had a stick put in their hand at the age of 3. And I was certainly a late bloomer, even just to the game itself. And so to be able to step foot on a field and proudly represent my country as one of the top athletes, it's something I'll never, ever forget.
So how did you end up starting to play lacrosse?
That's a funny story. So I went to a school in Delaware, Sanford. That's a preschool through 12th grade. At the time, my dad also worked there, as you mentioned, not only coaching basketball, but he was the dean of students in the upper school. And it's a very close-knit community, so everyone knows everyone. But I think I was in 6th grade at the time, and there was the varsity lacrosse coach who knew that basketball was my sport. But she gave me my first stick and encouraged me to try it out. And so I did. And at small schools like that, you have to play a sport, every trimester or semester. And so that was the sport that I chose, and I happened to naturally be good at it. And so that's how I started. But Wayne, I never played club, so I never played out of season. I was AAU basketball through and through. And I give credit and thanks to my college coach, Keely McDonald, for seeing the potential in me, because most of the kids that she was recruiting are coming from, these very elite lacrosse schools and having played their entire lives and playing club, and she just saw some raw talent that she felt like, she could work with. And really, really grateful for her, because that going to Brown opened up some doors for me in my life and my career that just, probably would have never happened otherwise.
That's amazing. Was she your coach for all 4 years?
She was, yeah. She was my coach for all 4 years. And she just taught me so much in terms of lessons on the field, lessons off the field. A lot of what I feel like I bring and how I operate now, either personally or professionally, stems back to a lot of the lessons that I learned as a college athlete. So just always really grateful for her.